Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your technical critic, and it's time for my review of Game of Thrones, Season 4, Episode 9, The Watchers on the Wall, second to last episode. Before I do my review, though, I know that 95% of you, 90 to 95% of you, are not going to make it to the end of this video, so I have to say it now. Like, favorite, subscribe, but most importantly, leave a comment in the comment section. What is the matter with you guys? 186 of you watched the last two episodes of this. Not one of you left a single comment. And I told you, we do a discussion afterwards. Leave a comment either about the episode or about what you thought of the review. Whatever. You can leave a comment about your day. I will talk about it in the next episode. And since this is the last review before the next episode is the final episode for this season, this is your last chance to join the discussion. Leave a comment. Come on, guys. It's not that hard. See? Done! So, let's talk about this episode. If I had to score it, I'd have to say 9 out of 12. Maybe 8 out of 12. This is a good episode, but it's not a content-rich episode. You could essentially skip this episode and not miss anything, but it's still a very good episode to watch. The writers know that they know when to stop doing things. And 4 episodes, stop all the raping and all the creepiness. This episode, if we're going to kill people, let's just have extras get killed, because the last episode was so plot intense, just with Sansa's storyline, Arya's storyline, Daenerys' storyline, Tyrion's storyline, Oberyn's storyline. It was so plot heavy, and they just drove the story so far forward with the palace intrigues and just everything that's been going on. They know that we, the audience, need a break. So they're like, you know what? We're just gonna have a fun, engaging episode. We're gonna have a big battle. It's just gonna focus on one part of the world. We're just gonna have a huge, massive battle go on. It's gonna be a fun episode. We can watch it. We can enjoy it, and we can talk, and then we can prep ourselves for the season finale. We could set up Jon Snow's storyline for season 5, but other than that, we can prep ourselves. Just have a nice, relaxing episode, which is what this episode is. It is gigantic. I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything when I say this. Mance Rayder finally reaches the wall, and he's testing the defenses. And two things. This battle takes place at night, which means that it's best to attack at night because it's strategic and they can't see you. 2, there's a lot less animation to do because you don't have to animate a background. You can just keep it black night sky and you're fine. So they're attacking the wall. Castle Black is basically defending itself, and it is very engaging. Just the way that they film it, all the long shots coming down, and just everything that's going on. The size of this episode keeps you engaged. It makes you feel that you are participating, that you are in the battle with the characters, standing there watching it all happen. Just with the long sweeping shots of the attack and just the intensity with which everyone is fighting, you feel like you're there, and it keeps you engaged despite the fact that the same thing essentially is happening over and over and over again. I mean, there really is no other way to describe it. This episode really does draw you in. I'm watching it on a computer screen, which is like, it's basically the length of this times the length of this, right? It's basically like almost a square. So it's this long and this tall. So even on that small screen, I'm not watching it in any big surround sound. Just the use of sound and visuals draws you in and makes you feel like you're right there. And that's very good for an episode. Very, very good. It's basically a small action movie. It's a 1-hour action movie for Game of Thrones, and it really is very good. This episode is also very interesting, tactic-wise, because you've heard so much about the Watchers on the Wall that they are the main defense of everything and keep out all the nightmares from the north. The White Walkers, the Wildlings, the Giants, the Woolly Mammoths, everything. the dire wolves, they keep everything out because of the wall. And while you've heard a lot about this, and you may have seen the Night Watch have little raiding parties into the wildling side, and you might have seen them fight the wildlings here and there in very small bands, you've never actually seen them fight on the wall. So it's very interesting to see how they fight and use the wall and defend the wall as how they basically use the wall as a defensive structure and as a weapon. So that is extremely interesting, and I found it very engaging as a tactician. So that was a big part of the episode. There's also a lot of nice little moments that happen in between. So you start with a nice opening moment between Sam and John. You then go to Sam and another couple characters. I'm going to say that for the spoiler section, and then you've even got John and the Blade Commander, Commander Alistair, and even they have a moment together, and it's actually very interesting. I wouldn't say this is a John episode so much as this is a Sam episode, because we get a lot of Sam, and Sam really is the one who holds down this episode. So I feel right now that the only way to continue talking about it, just so that I can talk about all the wow moments that happened with the battle and with the small moments, I have to start to spoil it. So my review is, this is a good episode. You could probably skip it and not lose anything. In terms of Game of Thrones, you could probably edit Game of Thrones so that you could write John completely out and not lose a single thing. But that being said, I'm very glad I saw this episode. I think you should watch it. If you haven't seen it, spoiler stick is up. We're going to start spoilers. Go watch it. Come back. We can do a nice little powwow. Leave comments. We can do a review. And have a nice discussion, right? If you haven't seen it, what are you doing here? Go watch it. Come back. So, we're going to get into spoilers. The episode opens with John and Sam talking. Now, what could they possibly be talking about on top of the wall with an army of 100,000 raiders coming down on them? Could it be battle tactics? Could it be what do they think happens when they die? Nope, not at all. They're talking about love. Love, yes, they're talking about love. Specifically about what it means to be in love. So basically, it starts off with Sam talking about Gilly and how he never should have left Finmolestown. He's still complaining. And John's basically like, look, she's probably okay. She'll be fine. Stop worrying about her. And then he's basically like, well, tell me about your love. Tell me about Egret. And it really is two guys really just talking. It really does take John aback to try and explain what he had with Egret. And here's the reason why. It's a very telling conversation, because John struggles to describe what love is, and basically he ends up saying, you know what, I'm not a poet. I can't tell you what love is. But here's the thing, and let's take a look at John's backstory. He is a bastard born of Robb Stark and some woman about 20 years ago during the war for the Iron Throne with Robert Baratheon. He comes back to a woman who is extremely hostile to him because she sees him as an intruder, and all of his half-brothers and half-sisters. And he, even in the first episode, he says, I'm not a Stark. He is a self-described, for a very good reason, perpetual outsider within his own family. He may have grown up within Winterfell and within the Stark family, but he has never experienced family love. He's never experienced that unrequited, or I can't remember the word. He's never experienced that pure love for someone. You just love that person because you love them. So like he's never had like the love for his mother like Sam has had. Sam loves his mother. Sam's mother loves him. His brothers and sisters, they're his brothers and sisters, but he's still, he's still the half brother. He's still the bastard brother. So he's never actually had that, and of course his father, you've got to be a man, right? So no love there. So he's never really had a loving relationship in his life. So for him to then be with Egret for that very short period of time that he was, and then to be asked to describe what love is, he basically has no experience, and it's a very telling conversation about the character, and it makes you think very deeply. There's a lot more layers to that conversation than just two guys talking. So basically what happens after that is John, he gets annoyed and he basically tells Sam, okay, listen, stop questioning me about love and stop worrying, go to bed, because we're going to be attacked soon and I need you well rested. I'll take the watch from here. Does Sam go to bed? Absolutely not. He goes downstairs, and what is he reading about? What wildlings do to people. And basically Maester Targaryen comes in and says, look, you can read about what we've written about the wildlings doing to people. You can listen to the stories of what the wildlings say that we do to them. But you know what? Basically, the two of us don't do anything different to each other than men do anywhere else. And they talk about love again for another 10 minutes. And basically the conversation is, well, you can think about the women you love and you can worry about them as much as you want. But you know what? We're all about to die, so go to bed. It's basically a 15-minute lead to Sam being told to go to bed again. So as he's on his way to bed, who should knock on the door? Before that, we get another talk about love. A more carnal kind of love between a man and a bear. I assume a female bear, which is what our large red-bearded, what is his name? Giantsbane. Giantsbane is essentially telling a story about how he made love to a bear. And Egret, he's obviously told this story before because Egret turns around, really rounds him and goes, you never fucked a bear. Shut up, just shut up. And while all this is going on, Gillies manages to sneak past them and knock on the door. And really, this is when we see Sam start to take charge, because as soon as that peephole opens, and Pip sees Gilly there, and Pip is like, I can't let her in. I have orders not to open the gate. Sam's like, open the fucking gate. He just takes control from there, and he continues throughout the rest of the episode. He takes Gilly, he puts her in the basement. He's like, you're going to be safe here. We're about to be attacked. You promised you would protect me. I am protecting you. But you know what? There's going to be a battle. I have to fight. That's what men do. At that point, you feel a modicum of respect for Sam. That honestly, as a character, you probably never feel for him before. Sam is always portrayed as a bumbler, but right now, in this moment, he's finally sacking up and basically being like, you know what? No, I have a responsibility and I'm going to carry it through. And even if it is just a begrudging respect, he has earned that from his actions throughout this show. And just everything he does throughout the rest of it, you could tell he's scared. You could tell he's completely out of his element. But he tries. He does his best, and he's rewarded in the end. Good on you, Sam. Now, the final nice little moment before this episode, before we talk about just the awesome battle that happened in this episode, is between Sir Alistair and Jon Snow. Basically, the army, Mance Rayder's army, lights a huge fire in the forest. And then so here's the wall, here's the forest, you've got giant fire here, you've got wall here, and you've got the army in between. Which really, from a tactical standpoint, is not a very good thing to do, because let's look at this. You've got a fire. Just look at it from the point of view of your two attacking dangers. You've got the wall in front of you, which you're trying to attack, and which is being defended by the Night's Watch. You've got a raging inferno behind you. This area here is basically a kill box. So it looks spectacular. It's like, wow, that is intimidating. But you know what? It's just that that is not good tacticianing. Whichever one of your idiot generals said, you know what? Let's set the whole thing on fire. Whoever went through with that is like, nah, No, that is reckless endangerment of your troops. And I know you might have 100,000 of them to the 100 guys inside of Castle Black, but you know what? Reckless abandonment is reckless abandonment, and you will need every single troop you have once you get over that wall. And he will get over that wall, make no mistake. So that happens, and basically Sir Alistair, knowing that they're essentially screwed, he goes, you know what, John? You're right. But do you know why I said that you weren't right? Because this is essentially prison, and I have to look tough. And when you think about it, it's true. He's talking about when you're a commander, you can't second guess yourself, otherwise, especially when other people are second guessing you. You have to stick to what you think, or you have to stick to the decisions you make, even if they're bad. You stick with them just to keep your command. And it basically is the closest thing that you get to an apology, because he basically goes, if we all do our jobs, you're going to be able to keep hating me, and I'm going to keep wishing that your woman had finished the job properly, which is as close as you get to an apology. With I hope you basically I hope you live to continue hating me, and you were right about the tunnel. That's as close as he gets to an apology. And then he goes down and he makes a rousing speech to the troops, and basically, for a character that the show has been leading you to just hate, it's a moment of redemption. Just the apology alone starts the pivot, and then the rousing speech completes it. It's exactly the same as Jaime's redemption, just with his story and then the pivot. Except it's not opposite. It's parallel, I'd say. So the attack begins. You've got giants rushing the wall with woolly mammoths. They're throwing flaming oil down on them. The way that the wall is set up to defend, they've got ballistas on the top of the wall to mechanically fire arrows, and then they've got some ballistas, I should say. They don't have a lot. Then it's mostly to defend the gate. The majority of the attacking implements are on and around the gate at the top of the wall, because that is the essential weak point. So you've got them firing arrows, and the main thing is, okay, you stand on top of the wall, you draw your arrow, and you fire it. This whole battle is taking place at night, so every arrow is on fire. Why is it taking place at night? 1, because strategically it's good. 2, it is a lot easier to animate, because you can keep the background dark. There's a lot less to animate in a night battle, but even so, it is still visually spectacular, because you just see the massiveness of the wall, the massiveness of the army, and the two of them just preparing to attack each other. It is wonderful to watch. So they're firing arrows down at them. They're firing arrows up at them, and like some of the arrows are missing, but when the giants fire the arrows, they get up, and you see an arrow fired by a giant will take a guy, put it through the guy, and then he will go flying through a roof and then off the wall, and you just see him fall like. It is so cartoonish, it is almost funny. I'm losing my voice. And at one point, the wildlings even start to scale the wall, and Jon Snow's like, they're not going to make it till dawn. They're like, I think they're in much more hurry than you are. So in order to fight them, they can throw rocks down at them, sure, but the way that they fight them is they put them in harnesses. They lower them over the wall so that they're basically standing vertically down, and they basically take their arrows and they fire down. It is awesome to watch. It is super awesome. They're loading barrels into catapults and just dropping them, flaming down. One of them gets stuck and explodes when they're trying to get unstuck, which, come on guys, safety 101. If something is stuck and it's on fire and it's explosive, turn it off by taking the wick out. Put the wick out and then try and get it unstuck. It doesn't matter if you're at war. Safety first. It'll save you, it'll save your catapult, it'll save the guys around you from barrels exploding. It's just common sense. 1 barrel of oil is not worth your life. Safety first. Safety first, even in the middle of a war. So that's happening, and like the ace in their sleeve, and this truly is epic. When too many guys are climbing for them to be able to hit, they just pull a lever and just this gigantic ball and chain. They call it the scythe. It just comes crashing down across the wall and it just wipes them clean like a windshield wiper. The only thing that's left is one arm hanging on a hook. And this is not a one-time thing. They're like, hoist it back up. We're going to use it again. At that point, I'm like, oh my god. As soon as you see that scythe just come down, you're like, what is going on? That is awesome. It is truly spectacular. That's the fighting on the wall. As soon as this is all happening and the fire in the forest starts going, the raiders on the south are like, okay, let's go. We got to attack Castle Black. They make it through, and they are just going at it hard. You can just tell this is a hard battle. It is for keeps. It is so intense, the fighting that goes on in Castle Black. But there's only one thing that took me out of it, and here's what it is. The former captain of the guard at King's Landing, you know, the one who's like kind of the toady to Sir Alistair, they're basically like, in order to get him off the wall, they basically trick him, and they're like, hey, Sir Alistair says the commander says you're needed down there to help with the troops. He goes down, he sees the fighting, he literally pees his pants, and he decides to hide. Where does he hide? I'll give you one guess. Gilly's food closet. As soon as that happened, my brain just lost it. It's like, oh no, just all the fear of like, oh no, she's gonna get raped. She's going to get raped again. That just was like flashing my brain. And literally something that had been said in the previous episodes. Listen, she survived Craster, she survived the Long March, she survived the White Walkers, and she survived being with Sam. Which, let's face it, is more of a liability than a help. So, I think she can handle... and she survived Molestown, even though that was by Egret's mercy. But she did survive Molestown, so I think she might be able to... She can handle herself. She'll be okay. After convincing myself of that, I managed to continue to watch the episode. So Sir Alistair, he fights Redbeard, Giantsbane. Giantsbane is the only one who survives this entire battle of the Southern Raiders. Everybody else dies. Egret is there. She's picking people off. The cannibals are there. They're slicing people up. They're not eating anyone though, luckily. They don't show you any cannibalism in the battle. They're probably waiting till after, but there's like guys getting hammers to their head and people like fighting with sword. It's pretty cool. Egret is just putting people down left, right, and center. Sam is doing the same with his crossbow. Sam goes up. He gets John. John comes down. He's fighting people. He's cutting them down. He gets an animal to the head and lives. Puts a hammer through some other guy's head, and Egret pulls her bow on him. She's all cocked, ready to go. What does he do? He disarms her with his smile. He just stands there and smiles at her. He's basically like, well, she's either going to kill me or she's not going to kill me. And at that moment, the kid who brought them the message that the raiders were south of the wall, if you recall, wait, hang on. He puts an arrow through it, and he nods at John like, yeah, son, I saved you. He goes off to continue shooting arrows at people. They go together. They have their nice little moment. He goes, we should have stayed in that cave. She goes, you know nothing, Jon Stow. So she basically forgives him. Egret forgives him. The fall of every good woman is a stupid man. He stands there smiling at her. Their storyline, the love story between Egret and Sam, is literally, at the time that it happened, it was second place to Theon getting tortured by Ramsay. That is how far back it was. But the fact that they took the time to just tie that up in a nice little bow with her death, everybody dies. The only way to resolve anything in Game of Thrones is to have somebody killed. So, with this episode, they're basically just housekeeping with that. So, they continue to battle. The giants are bashing at the gates. They toss the oil on them. One survives and it gets through the gate. So, John, before he goes down, he sends basically his best friend and 5 other guys down there to face down the giant. And this is something that only can happen in a fantasy. And as I've stated before many times, and this episode changes nothing, but Game of Thrones is not a fantasy. It is not high fantasy. It is not high fantasy at all. It might take place in a fantasy setting, but it is more medieval political intrigue with fantasy side plots. Daenerys' side plot is a fantasy side plot. Jon Snow's side plot, that's a fantasy side plot. But at no time do they ever directly intercede with the main plot, which is what is happening in King's Landing. Now and then, those things will get mentioned. Like, oh, Daenerys is taking this particular city. Or, the Watchers have sent us a message. That's it. That is it. They get mentioned, and then they get affected by whatever's happening in King's Landing, not the other way around. But, just watching the giant charge, and the Night's Watchmen chanting their oath, basically as a way to fortify themselves before they fight this giant, is something that you would only see in the best kind of fantasy. You would only read it in fantasy adventure books. You would only see it in fantasy movies, and that scene really hammers home why fantasy is one of the. It basically hammers home why you should be watching or reading fantasy. It has great moments like that you would never see in anything else. It might not be for everyone. It's similar to like the guys on the sports team chanting before they go out on the field, or chanting the school motto while they're on the field. But you know what? Fantasy does it in just such a better way. And I'm not ashamed to say fantasy. A lot of people are like, well, we need a better name for it. No, fantasy works. Fantasy works, and I'm unashamed to say that I'm proud to watch fantasies. And this is why. It's when you have all of these elements of just camaraderie versus the fantastical coming together in just these epic moments. That is the essence of fantasy. That moment is fantasy distilled into 30 seconds. And I'm glad that it was there. And even though they were all dead at the end, they slayed the giant. They took him down. So, the battle ends. Sir Alistair's dead. That guy who was cowering with Gilly, he doesn't rape her, thank God. But Sam comes back, he finds him hiding there with her. Maybe he'll get court-martialed. Who knows? He probably won't. Not with everyone basically dead on the wall. You see like 50 guys go down, and you know there's only 100 people there on the wall, so they barely hang on. They barely hang on. Although, to be fair, if they hadn't been attacked by the raiders from the south, they probably would have done a lot. They probably would have fared a lot better against the wildlings. So that is what it is. So the episode's ending. John's like, you know what? There's only one way that we barely survived this night. There's only one way we're gonna make it through this. We have to kill Mance Rayder, and I'm going to go and I'm going to kill him. And the episode ends with John walking out, preparing to face Mance Rayder, and that is the setup for season 5. We're not going to get to see any more of that storyline. I'm sorry, you're not going to see Mance Rayder in this season. We went a whole season without his character. We went a whole other 2 seasons without his character. It's okay. We don't need to see him. The fact that he's there, his army's there, is enough. So that is the episode. As I said, you could essentially skip it and not miss anything. If you don't like Jon Snow's plotline, you might not like this. But I suggest that you watch it because it's a nice break from all the political intrigue. It really is the fantasy side of the story that you need. You need it to break up the political intrigue. Otherwise, you're just ingesting information and it's too much. You need this as a nice little break. So that's been my review. It's a good episode. It's not superb, but it's good. It's serviceable. So watch it. If you made it all the way through this, I don't know how you went 30 minutes without a bathroom break. I don't know how I went 30 minutes without a break. Well, actually I do, but I'm not going to tell you. So, last two reviews. None of you left comments, so unfortunately we can't do a discussion here. I'll mention you. I promise. Just put a comment down below. I promise you we will discuss it here in great detail. Who knows? Maybe we'll even discuss it before the review in great detail. But if you made it this far, you are awesome. I know I'm not the easiest guy to listen to. I know I was rambling there for a little bit. But we've made it to the end. So, watch this episode. Like, favorite, comment, dislike, share. Everything. Do everything. And I will see you in the next review for the season finale. I've got Orange is the New Black, episodes 1 through 5, and then I'm going to review each episode individually. So that's coming up literally right after this. So I will see you guys in the next review.